Hello there friends and welcome. For today's Warhammer Rogue Trader guide we have at long last a main character build, and we'll be going with Officer and also Sanctic Psyker. This way you'll have not only the best buffs early, with the ability to provide allies with extra turns to enhance them to their maximum potential, but most importantly, as early as the second chapter, you'll also get to become an amazing, extremely powerful Blaster Caster, by cleansing the enemies in the holy light of the Emperor, with area of effect nukes that deal hundreds of damage worth even higher than 1000 damage. So if you thought Cassia the Navigator was overpowered enough, wait until your very own main character is dealing 900 plus damage even as early as chapter 2, not even midway through the game. All you see here is on unfair mode, of course, plus you'll also be quite tanky, with even massive area of effect heals, and of course the ability to enhance the damage of allies and yourself even further, with even a huge party-wide armor rating percentage bonus. And lastly, the ability to specialize in all of the most important dialogue skill checks: persuasion, intimidation or coercion, and commerce. Perfect for the main character, so without further ado let us get into our Officer Master Tactician Sanctic Psyker Nuker Buffer build. When it comes to Homeworld, I'd say you have three options. Voidborn is one of my favorites. The Fortune starter feature is pretty nice, most importantly for rerolling skill tests, and this character will have high dialogue skills by virtue of high fellowship scores. But honestly, it is all about the Jinx talent that you can pick during level up. In the spirit of supporting our characters to the max, we have Jinx. It will increase the chances of all allies, including yourself, by 10%. And it works for almost everything, especially to hit chance, dodge, parry, and critical hits. Besides that, you also have Hive World. The strengthening number features can be powerful for this build, plus you also have higher fellowship at the start, as it will further increase your resolve, one of the most important stats for an officer, and also our Psyker, because our special damage spells will scale from resolve. So long as you are nearby allies, very easy to do by just starting battle near them. It's just that I don't think the talents will help you at all. Besides that, the classic Imperial World, you can add +10 to your fellowship at the start, and the Ready to Serve ability will also increase your resolve further. I'd rather Voidborn for Jinx, mostly because I don't have another party member that can do so. For Origin, the choice is very simple. If you want to truly combine the maximum buffing with the maximum area of effect damage, then you have to be a Sanctioned Psyker. As to why not go with Noble, well, you just won't have anywhere near as high area of effect damage potential. Mostly because of the Sanctic Psyker archetype. You start with the World of the Emperor spell, which is nice because it hits a huge area, always most of your party members, and will increase the resolve of everyone. Great because, like I said, it's one of your most important stats, but also for allies to generate more momentum, which means more heroic actions. The other powers are quite good as well, especially Hammer of the Emperor to highly increase our allies' damage, once again further boosted by resolve, and Shield of the Emperor, which is almost the same, but for more defenses, especially a huge boost to party-wide armor. While Light of the Emperor can even heal everyone, so it's quite versatile, and Purge the Soul works for single target damage, and most importantly, your special Sanctic Psyker Staff, which is where you get your extremely powerful area of effect nuke. The talents can be good as well, especially Psalms of Heroes, which, well, should increase your Psi rating by huge amounts, except unfortunately it is bugged at the moment. Hopefully fixed with the next patch. So that 1000 damage you saw at the beginning, well, it could be even higher with this, because of how easy it is for officers to, well, spam heroic actions. For your Triumph, just pick whatever will enhance a skill you want to specialize into, such as either Persuasion or Coercion. Meanwhile, a Darkest Hour that will not interfere with a skill of choice. Something like minus logic doesn't matter for this build. As far as your archetype, the choice is simple. Officer, of course. It's not only one of the most busted archetypes, if not the best early one, but later we'll get to increase our power even further through Master Tactician, for more buffs and more damage. I've already explained what makes Officer so good in my previous beginner's guide, even for my Cassia build, but to put it simply, it's all about buffing allies, of course, through especially Voice of Command to increase all of their stats, and also Air of Authority for higher resolve, especially important for this build. while also granting a huge amount of extra turns through their main feature Bring It Down, or their heroic action Finest Hour. Ideally, because you cannot cast these buffs on yourself, you also want a fellow officer ally for even more buffs and more resolve. And for your stats, it's very simple. We want to max Fellowship to increase the power of our officer abilities and our resolve. Also Willpower, which does have synergy with both Psyker and Officer. And the last stat is up to you. I like starting with 40 Toughness, just for more hit points. And you might as well go for Agility, for higher initiative. For the second level, this is going to depend on what skills you truly want to specialize in. As I said, because you have decent enough Fellowship, you can just go with any of the main dialogue skills: Persuasion, Commerce, and Coercion. And there's plenty of opportunities to use all of them. You can always have someone like Cassia the Navigator take care of persuasion checks for you, or another officer party member like Jai or a mercenary, which is what I prefer doing. So I'd rather specialize into Coercion. For Unfair, it does help to have a character with the highest skill possible for each of them, because you do take penalties to skill checks, of 20% even. Level 3 is just our Bring It Down special action for more turns. Level 4 we have Finest Hour, and for the first talent, well, the choice is very simple. The best early talent of them all, Seize the Initiative. At the beginning of combat, you'll get an extra turn, before all the enemies get to act. And you'll still have your normal turn, of course, according to initiative. The only limitation is you start with 2 points of AP instead of 4, and can only use Officer Archetype abilities, but this isn't really a downside, because you can either use Bring It Down to grant an extra turn to another ally, especially a damage dealer, like Argenta or Cassia, or cast both Voice of Command, and later also Air of Authority, as both only cost 1 AP, for maximum buffing before the ally's turn. The only downside of this feat is that it is a bit bugged at the moment, unfortunately. Sometimes you get infinite turns with it, what can I say? I do know the devs are aware of that. Well, hopefully, I think it's gonna be fixed in the next patch coming this week. But trust me, it is definitely the best of the early feats you have, especially for Unfair, cause acting first before the enemies, there is no price to that. For level 5, be sure to increase Fellowship first. Your willpower increases can be delayed for later. And for a generic talent, well, ideally, you would pick Psalms of Heroes at this point for uber psi rating increases, but like I said, it's bugged and does nothing at the moment. Might as well wait until it's fixed. Therefore, I'd rather go for Jinx, or whatever other Homeworld specific talent you want to pick. At level 6, we can select another officer talent. And well, this is going to depend on if you have another officer party member or not. Because ideally, you'll want one of your officers to specialize into the talents that grant bonuses to Voice of Command and Air of Authority. You don't really need it on other officers, because here's the logic. The officer that acts first through Seize the Initiative is the one that you want to cast both Voice of Command and also Air of Authority on your main damage dealer. The other officers that go after, also through Seize the Initiative, are the ones that want to spam Bring It Down instead to grant turns to this already buffed to the max ally. For that, it's important to pay attention to the order that Seize the Initiative happens. As far as I've tested, whatever character you recruit last and has this feat will go first above all the others. So for example, the main character will kinda always go last when compared to all the other officers that also have Seize the Initiative, which is why I'd rather not pick the buff boosting abilities with him, because well, by the time he acts, I'd rather just use Bring It Down. Of course, if you only have a single officer in your party, but Cassia is one, you also have another story party member, Jai, then you might as well go with the buff boosting talents, such as Focus, to highly increase both the perception and ballistic skills of an ally of choice, especially Argenta or any ranged character for sniping and bursting enemies down. After all, it will stack with the already huge bonus to all stats from Voice of Command. Besides that, resolve increases such as Steel Resolve, because Air of Authority, well, the bonus increases directly based on the caster's resolve, even though you use it on an ally. For the other officers, they do not need these talents at all, rather it's best to use them to boost your Bring It Down ability, because it's what they'll be spamming instead. such as more than possible, so instead of just 2 AP, the ally will start with 3 instead. Anyways, because I already have an officer mercenary that will act first, and will focus on these talents I mentioned, I'd rather go with more than possible for the main character officer, but I've already given you the reason why and the choices you can go for instead. Then more fellowship until the max. For level 7 you can even pick an officer power, ideally Heir of Authority, unless once again you already have someone else to provide it for your party, the so-called buffing officer, which I do, or one of your special SANTIC psychic powers, ideally Shield of the Emperor. The benefit won't be that high so early, but later you can truly increase your whole party's armor percentage by huge stacking amounts. It's mostly here, however, so that later we can pick Hammer of the Emperor, as it is a prerequisite. Purge the Soul, well, it does deal damage and can deal very high damage depending on, well, how corrupted the enemy is, right? Because it increases against Xenos, even more against Chaos Worshippers or Demons. But by itself the damage will not be big at all, as it relies on Psi rating, but at least your resolve also goes into the equation. Also be careful because it will cost quite a lot of Veil degradation, unlike your Santic Psyker Staff Area of Effect nuke that you'll get later at the second chapter. I'd rather Shield of the Emperor now. And for your generic talent at level 7, for now I'd go with Steel Mind because it will directly increase your resolve, while Veil degradation is at 10 or lower. It will almost always be 10 or lower at the start of battle before you get your nukes going, and resolve increases their damage. Plus, when being buffed by either Cassia or an officer ally, you'll also increase your willpower by a lot. The more resolve you have, the better for your party. For another officer talent at level 8, either Steel Resolve for higher resolve of course, or Personal Oversight. Whenever you target an ally with an ability, and you have plenty of them, especially your Bring It Down, well, they'll get an increase to resolve. If you have this on all of your officers, that's a huge bonus to resolve you're adding to an ally of choice, especially someone like Argenta, to easily generate momentum and burst enemies down for chapter 1 before you get your powerful area of effect nukes. For skills, as I said, keep increasing whatever you picked first for me coercion. For the first upgrade to Finest Hour, 100% number 4, as this is what lets your allies spam their attacks like Argenta sniping the entire enemy army before their turn comes. After you max out one of your skills, well, go for another one. For me, Commerce. But you can pick even Lore Empyrean or Lore Warp depending on what other skills your party members are going to cover for you. And when you finish increasing Fellowship as Officer, it's time to go all out into Willpower. For level 11, it's time to finally get 1 Psi rating, as the requirement is level 10. Of course, if the Psalm of Heroes feat was working, we'd have way more during battle. Thankfully, your most powerful psychic area of effect nuke doesn't care that much about Psi rating, but it always helps for more uber damage. Then more willpower. And for another ability, Hammer of the Emperor sadly requires 2 Psi rating, which only comes at level 20+. Therefore, this is when I would go for a Biomancy multiclass. The starter Biomancy spell is good enough, but mostly for the Enfeeble one, which increases the damage the enemies take, and well, when you are increasing hundreds of damage, that's a lot extra damage you're adding. And for a generic talent, this is when I like to pick It Will Not Die. Increasing your hit points helps a lot in this game because, well, first you have 55 total levels, so that's a lot of extra HP you're adding. Second, if your characters die in battle, there's not that many ways of bringing them back, at least during that battle. So it's best to not let that happen, and It Will Not Die will help if that does the name. For another officer talent, Steel Resolve, for even more resolve of course. Then more Commerce or whatever skill you want. And well, you might as well keep increasing toughness now, because weapon skill and ballistic skill don't really do much for you. Ballistic can increase your damage super slightly, but you can just make up for it through buffs. So I'd rather toughness for more hit points and tanking capabilities. And for your talent, well, because we are close to getting our very powerful psychic staff for the area of effect nukes, I'd rather start increasing our psychic power now, first through Psychic Barrage. The extra damage might not seem that much, but well, when you are multiplying a plus 10 with 300%, it does add up. And the first upgrade for Finest Hour, so allies have even higher damage, and permanent Voice of Command effect. And that's it for Officer progression. For level 16 and our second archetype, definitely Master Tactician, if you want the highest damage with your nukes possible. But you can also go with Vanguard for extra tanking, I just think it's unnecessary. I'd rather have the 1000 plus damage nukes, because it's really fun to just burn the enemies in the holy fires of the Emperor. And this is all made possible because of the starter ability Master Tactician has, Press the Advantage, which empowers your next attack, our Holy Nukes, with plus 4% additional damage for every stack of Tactical Advantage you have. Tactical Advantage works like this: you have plus 1 for every 5 momentum gained by you or allies, and well, because we can buff our allies' resolve by a lot, that's a lot of momentum you're generating. And you also start with some. Later you have abilities to provide more, and this is what lets you get higher than 200-300% damage on your nukes. It is that good, especially because it costs 0 AP only to activate, and won't even drain all of your tactical advantage, it's only half, and you always generate more. Now for the first Master Tactician power, at level 17, go with either Enfeeble for higher damage taken by enemies, but because the benefit isn't that high early on, it's like plus 7% or so extra damage, I'd rather pick an exclusive Master Tactician power, Fervor. This is really good for this build. It does have a cost of 20% of your maximum hit points, but the effect is more than worth it, as you'll gain more stacks of tactical advantage equal to your resolve, which at this point, when buffed, can easily be 30 to 40, which of course means more and more boosts to damage from Press the Advantage for truly holy, overpowered nukes. Once again, the hit points cost don't matter if you're just blowing up the entire enemy army. The first talent at level 18 is very simple, In the Hero's Footsteps, one of the ultimate talents in the game. With this, you'll immediately get an extra turn with around 2 action points and full movement points after an ally uses a heroic act, which is very easy to do with this build, especially if you have another officer. I don't think I need to say why having extra turns is so powerful, especially because it works for each heroic act and will stack with your normal turn from initiative and also the Seize the Initiative extra turn. For the next level you'll have your new heroic action, which honestly is rather poor compared to just Finest Hour, or the OP nuke of your staff, which deals ultimate damage if cast as a heroic action. At the very least you'll have 1 extra AP at this point, which helps every single build and character. Then be sure to return to Fellowship. More Fellowship at level 21, and for the talent I'd say you have 2 options. Because you'll already be level 21 by now, you can go with Psi Rating 2. I'd rather delay it for later, however, because, well, at this point, you can pick a Master Tactician exclusive talent. Meanwhile, 2 levels after this, you will get to pick a generic talent, which you can use of course for extra Psi Rating, but not for the Master Tactician ones. So, my preferred pick is Nerves of Steel. Whenever you or any ally gains momentum, you'll get +1 more. Considering we are built for maximum momentum generation, this is even better for getting those tasty heroic actions as soon as possible before enemies get to do anything. Sure, it also increases the momentum you lose, but that's not gonna happen at all if you know what you're doing. Also, it will stack with other Master Tacticians in your party that have the same talent. For another power, this is when I'd go for Enfeeble or Linchpin, only if you don't have another party member that can provide you with Master Tactician abilities, and I do have one. Linchpin is one of the best ways of increasing your character's resolve, equal to 1 for every 5 stacks of tactical advantage you have. Amazing when combined with the Air of Authority ability, of course. The thing is, I'd rather have someone buff me with this because, well, I prefer to use my stacks of tactical advantage by blowing it up to press the advantage for the maximum damage boost possible. You can also pick Inspire. The issue is this feat is bugged at the moment and I don't think it's working at all. Sad because it does provide a massive boost to the damage of your allies. So keep this in mind, assuming it gets fixed at the next patch, especially if you have another Officer Master Tactician. Anyways, I'd rather pick Enfeeble now to increase the damage enemies take, because at this point we are already dealing easily hundreds of damage with your SANTIC Psyker staff nukes. At the next level, another Master Tactician talent. I like Hidden Advantage because, well, it means even more stacks of Press the Advantage for higher nuke damage. But there's a few other options you can also pick, such as Joint Offensive, which increases your stacks of Tactical Advantage for every enemy you hit, and you can hit around 9 per area of effect. Or most importantly, Personal Involvement, which increases your resolve by +1 for every enemy you kill. It's just that usually, when you cast your nukes, you're killing everything and ending combat, or just leaving a few crippled enemies left alive, so I don't think it's that important. But it can help with some of the battles that go on and on and on with respawning enemies and so on. Later you have the space for all of these anyways. Then start increasing your main skill again, Coercion for me. For another stat, back to Willpower. But you can also pick Agility if you want. Anyways, level 25 is when we get another generic talent, which is why I chose to delay Psi Rating 2 for this point. As I said, unlike other Psykers, our nukes aren't that reliant on Psi Rating, they are much more about Resolve. But this will help with other powerful psychic powers we'll be picking. For the next level we get another Master Tactician talent, and well, it's basically the ones I said. It's time for Personal Involvement now. Then more Coercion, or Persuasion, or whatever. More Willpower. Your last volley upgrade doesn't matter because you won't be using it at all. It's either Finest Hour from Officer or the heroic variant of your area of effect nuke, Wrath of the Emperor. So you can truly pick whatever you want here, such as the first upgrade. For another special talent, Joint Offensive. Then resume increasing your second most important skill. For me it is Commerce. And at this point you can choose between Agility or Toughness. I'd rather Toughness because Agility won't do much for us. And for level 30, for our generic talent, the choice is very simple. Psi Rating 3 at last. For another power, this is when I'd go for Hammer of the Emperor. To increase the damage of all party members. It's just for the next attack, however. But the extra damage boost is huge. Then go for Against All Odds so that you start combat with additional stacks of advantage equal to the number of enemies, and you're often fighting 10 plus enemies in this game. As a matter of fact, you can also pick this earlier if you prefer, I kind of forgot about it. Instead of, for example, Hidden Advantage, Joint Offensive, or Personal Involvement, but you'll always want in the Hero's Footstep first above all others. Then more Toughness, more Commerce, and for another Master Tactician talent, well, you might as well go for Heroic Inspiration, so that your first ability after the very first heroic act using combat will cost 0 AP. It's not that important, but we have the space to spare for it now. Then more Toughness, and for another generic talent, Second Sight to increase the range of your Psychic Nuke. It's not that necessary, but well, we have the space now. And any other upgrade for your last volley ability, because like I said, you will not be using it at all, might as well pick the second one now. And that's it for Master Tactician progression. Now we at last have Exemplar levels. The game goes up to level 55, but that's super late game. I decided to go for 40 because I think it's more balanced. And well, the Exemplar levels, well, they're mostly bonuses. As I said, you're already dealing hundreds of damage even at the beginning of chapter 2, so everything that comes after that is just icing on the cake. Sadly, the Exemplar exclusive talents don't help this build that much, unlike, let's say, Cassia as a navigator. I suppose Cataclysm can be chosen for minor extra damage whenever you damage a new target, but like I said, usually you just blow everything apart with your nukes. For the battles that are drawn out, it can help. Anyways, I'd rather just go for Eager for Battle. The extra +2 additional action points at the start of battle matter a lot, as you have a lot of powerful Psychic, Sanctioned Psyker buffs with your nuke, of course, some of which cost 2 AP. And for the talent, you can also pick some officer talents at this level. On other levels, you'll get to pick more master tactician ones. It all depends on what first and second archetypes you chose, but anyways, go with either heroism or leader's assault. Then resume progression into your main skill, coercion for me. You can pick another master tactician talent now, but we kinda already have the best ones by far. Well, you can go with Brink of Death, it's just that it only increases the damage you deal against enemies with 50% or less hit points. Don't forget, if you don't care for these feats, you can also pick stuff from your psychic schools, like for example Sanguine Siphon, for an ability to avoid death, rather unique. Then resume progression into your main attribute, which is Fellowship. Now you have a truly generic talent, go for either more Fellowship, or I'm picking Sanguine Siphon because I think it's a really fun effect. But chances are you'll never die anyways with this build. You can also pick another psychic power now or any ability from Officer or Master Tactician. You can of course go with Sword of Faith, a very cool ability but it costs momentum and I'd rather use that for heroic actions. Also the damage equals to that of your Purge the Soul ability, and your Psychic Nuke from the Wrath of the Emperor ability is just much better, I'm afraid. But hey, it's a choice if you want something fun. I'd rather Light of the Emperor for the healing ability, then more Coercion, and for level 40 we'll have another Exemplar exclusive talent. As I said, they don't matter that much for this build unfortunately. Martyrdom can increase your momentum but requires you to be attacked, which is a big nope. Ideally you want to kill everything before they attack you. I just go for Cataclysm, for more damage, even if it's not that much of an increase. But if you want more defensive powers, there's always Stuff of Steel for as high hit points as possible and so on. Thankfully we can pick something very nice with our last generic talent, the last increase to Psi rating number 4. And that's it for our normal progression. Now let's just do a quick section on the best gear for this character, especially for the first and second chapters. For chapter 1, you'll mostly be a buffer to Officer, so you can go with, for example, the Metronome, for more stats, as you don't really have to move as a buffer. After all, so long as the ally is under voice of command from any other officer, it doesn't have to be you, your officer abilities will work regardless of the range, so long as you have line of sight. The Noble Silk Gloves for higher persuasion if you went for that path. Any armor that doesn't reduce your dodge, but most importantly the Von Valencia's Cloak, which increases all your stats by +5 so long as you are at full hit points, easy as an officer, with Seize the Initiative and so on. This should come from a free DLC by the way, and the Face of the Sovereign Helmet, another amazing item, but not for your officer, really, at least not in chapter 1. I'd rather leave it for a DPS focused character like Argenta as a sniper, for +1 resolve whenever she kills an enemy. The second chapter, however, is when the fun really starts, because it's when we can finally get our special Sanctified Staff, which of course is the source of our most OP nuke. The damage is highly tied to your resolve instead of willpower or Psi rating. It even grants you extra armor when using it. Now how to get it? Well, simply buy it from the main priest faction that you unlock when you first reach Footfall, the first chapter 2 area, and speak with an NPC that Argenta sends you to, it's part of her quest. For the start of the game, however, you can just keep to the normal Psychic Staff with Lightning Arc. And for more gear choice as well, Pirate's Scarf for more coercion, which I focused into. Heart of the Nameless can highly increase your skills, but you do need to be of a certain alignment. Well, if you are a good boy like the Emperor wishes, you'll be able to equip it. Aquila's Pendant for more willpower, and also more Fellowship if you are dogmatic. Most importantly, the Noble Born Mantle for a huge bonus to Fellowship so long as there aren't any enemies nearby. I also like the Battle Psyker boots to highly increase your dodge whenever you use your nukes, after all you can hit many enemies with them. And that's pretty much it, but of course you'll find much better gear later on. But well, you don't need that to deal higher than 1000 damage, as I've already shown you. Anyways, this was it for my Officer Psyker SANTIC build. If you found this guide useful, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends, this time certainly with Argenta's sniper build.